Coming up on this episode of The Prodigal Life, you know me, like Easter and Christmas, everybody would get dressed up and they'd wear their Sunday best and, and go. And there's a feeling about it that is just, it's like showing love. If you're driving by a church and it's 5 minutes to 5 and you don't have time to go home and get changed, God still wants you to come inside the church.
I was like, wow. I mean, it was like, she was beautiful. Long dress, everything covered up, everything. But it was her, she just didn't have the makeup on. She was just beautiful. Are you away from your faith?
Do you wonder why you're Catholic? Do you really want to know more?
If God is so good and he made a beautiful and amazing world, then why does life feel so messy and difficult and painful sometimes?
Do you feel stuck and want to take your faith to that next level? Join us on The Prodigal Life as me and Ellen and Nick have an honest and open discussion about all things important in our faith life. Welcome to The Prodigal Life. Hello, I'm Deacon Harold and joined by Ellen and Nick. And before we start today's thrilling episode talking about modesty, I want to direct all of you to our website, theprodigallife.com. There you will find previous episodes of our podcast, as well as all the information there about Awaken Catholic and all the great work that's being done there by Nick and the team. And you can also support us on our Patreon page, where we have different levels of participation. We're going to have some special gifts just for our patrons, right? Mm-hmm. So join us there as well.
And now y'all have to download the app because we have the Awaken app. So you can go to your Play Store or to your Apple Play and download it, and it's 100% Catholic. It has a messaging app that works when the world is broken, or at least Facebook, because that happened. And you can also go to your desktop and go to the awakenapp.io, which is kind of cool. It also has wonderful podcasts. It's 100% Catholic, and it's child appropriate too in some instances. And it has prayers and a whole bunch of wonderful information that you really should have in your life. Plus, you can keep in touch with family on a safe app that's Catholic friendly.
That's great. I love that.
All right. So talking about modesty today, right?
That's a hard one.
Modesty is something that happens on different levels, right? So at the first level, obviously, when people think about this issue, think about the way you dress, right? And within that context is typically how you dress for church. Mm-hmm. Like back in the day, you see pictures of back in the 40s, 50s.
Right.
So people wear suits and they wear dresses and
hats.
The hats and, it wasn't just Easter. Like this was like,
every Sunday.
You were going to church. Mm-hmm. You talk about wearing your church clothes. Mm-hmm.
It still exists today at the traditional Latin Mass. Most of the people who go to the TLM are still dressed appropriately.
Yeah, so I mean, they dress because why? Just like if you're going to some important meeting, you want to wear a suit, you want to look important, you want look impressive, But now you're going to worship God, and you wear flip flops and a tank top and stuff like that.
Probably shouldn't.
Again, at some place I've been to, like in Florida, there's a tendency in some parishes to go dressed like that, and I've seen signs on the doors from the pastors, please, you're coming into the house of God. Please dress appropriately, and when we go on pilgrimage, right? In the Middle East, they tell you what you're supposed to wear before you can enter into this sacred space. Mm-hmm. And I think again, people don't think about that. They don't think about I have to dress appropriately because I'm going into God's temple. I'm going into the house of God, and I want to make sure that I'm not drawing attention to myself, that attention is being focused on Christ. Because you're not going there intentionally having people focus on you, but sometimes the way you dress does draw people's attention to you in a way that it's not good a lot of the time.
A lot of the times it's not good. And I think what people need to remember and think about more is when you're going to Mass and going to church, Jesus is inviting you to a wedding. You should be dressed like you're going to the wedding. And as Catholics, when we do the holy, 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 that literally is heaven and earth. It's God is giving us a moment in time to where we are present in all of God's divinity for that moment after the holy, holy, holy. And, you know, when you're there, you should be humble and you should be dressed so that you're not the center of the universe. You should be dressed so that you are respectful and you are humble while you're there worshiping, so that the Lord knows that you're there for him. And he, you know what I mean? I mean, he's here for us all the time. But when we go to Mass and he's going to sacrifice himself, he's there for us. And we should be cognitively aware of our role in that, because he wants us to come to the wedding feast. We're being invited to the wedding. You should dress like you're going to the wedding. Don't you think?
I do. I think so. I'm kind of, this is a topic that I wrestle with a lot internally. So I've worked at parishes, and then I worked at the diocese, like I mentioned in another episode. I just had so many, when I worked at the 3 parishes that I worked at, I had so many interesting interactions that were challenging for me from a pastoral standpoint. Like one time there was a funeral going on in the church, and I was working in my office, and my office happened to be right next to an exit of the building. And from inside of my office, I didn't have any windows where I was, I could hear just this crazy screaming and hollering and like all this, and I didn't know what it was. I poked my head out. It's not the funeral. And I opened the exit door, and I hear this young woman on the phone who's just screaming and crying and having this crazy situation. And it might seem like this is not relevant to the conversation, but it is. So after she calmed down and she got off the phone, I was like, hey, is everything okay? Like, can I help you? And what's going on? And, you know, she shared with me that she was arguing with her girlfriend, and she's homeless, and she is also transgender. And so she's in the midst of transitioning to being a boy, and has a girlfriend who she's arguing with and is homeless. She's a teenager, and her parents kicked her out of the house. And I just see that situation, and I'm in that moment. I'm like, this is not what I was expecting right now. How do I handle this? Why is she here? She's not Catholic. Why is she here? And there was something in her desperation that brought her to the steps, a side exit door, but the steps of the Catholic Church. And I just said, can I pray with you? And I held her hands and I prayed with her. And she came back several times since then. Unfortunately, each time I was like out at a meeting or something. So I always ended up missing her. But that one time that we connected and that she found someone that embraced her and didn't tell her to get away, there's a funeral going on, stop screaming here, you know. And I think that we can have these constructs in our minds of the way that things are supposed to be, right, that can end up repelling someone in need. You know, I think about like if I injure myself, would I make sure I look nice before going to the emergency room, or would I just go to the emergency room, you know? And so there's kind of this dual reality where for those of us who are well-formed, who are invested in the faith, and we want to love God and worship God, we might have a certain, there might be a reality that is less than subjective about how we should dress ourselves, how we should present ourselves. It could verge on being an objective reality that we should make sure we look nice, right? But that reality should not exclude the possibility that there might be other people for whom we should not hold them to that standard, because they need to come to this emergency room. They need to come to these doors, and they may not have the capability of looking nicer than they do. And that should be the last thing on our minds when they're coming up to these doors.
Oh, correct. Yeah,
right.
I think so that speaks to judgment and love.
Yeah, because the problem is, like, we might know that injustice, God deserves for us to look right. But the problem is that we don't, too often this conversation is not hand in hand with this other reality that no matter what someone looks like,
they're welcome.
They're welcome here. And my first interaction with them should not be, what are you wearing? Get out of here. You know? And I love about the churches in Europe, for example, like when I went on pilgrimage, like same thing. I had to tell my high school girls, like, hey, you got to wear a long skirt, whatever. I love the heart posture of that, where God deserves this, you know?
Right.
But how many people are not coming to that church, even in Europe, because they know that that's a rule, that maybe they need to be there. Maybe they need to hear something that would be said in the preaching there. Maybe, like, who knows? I'm just saying there's kind of a both and at play in this.
What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I agree about the judgment piece. I mean, I remember going to a parish and I had to drive because it was like 2 hours from the airport. And so they said, go and rent a car, we'll reimburse you. Great. So when I put in the address they gave me, it was for the church, not for the rectory. So I got to the church. I'm like, oh, the rectory's not on site. So I had to ask somebody where the rectory is. So when I got out of the car, someone's coming out of the church. And I went to get their attention. They said, oh, the St. Vincent Paul is closed today. That's really good information. But you see that poster on the door? That's actually me. I'm actually just trying to find the rectory so I can actually meet Father before the Vigil Mass tonight.
Gosh.
Oh,
I can't believe
sorry.
that.
No, seriously.
That's crazy.
There's a parish. There's a parish in Florida.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, you know, so you're right. I mean, me walking up to the door and making a judgment, he must be here for clothes or food or something like that. I mean, where does that? I mean, again, talking about turning someone off.
Yeah, right.
To the church, right? You know, so I totally get that.
I'm so sorry that happened. That's so annoying.
Well, no, I mean, you know, it is what it is. I mean, that's the reality.
But we're all in a journey. I mean, we're all at a different phase in our journey, and like, you know, judgment is a real thing that we have to deal with. But we always have to look at love. I mean, I would never go up to a person in a church that wasn't dressed properly and say, "Oh, you can't be here." I mean, who would do that? I mean, that would. Why would you do that? You know what I mean? But on the backside of that, if I knew the family or the person or whatever, maybe it would be a conversation that would be had after Mass and go, you know, I'm glad that you came, but I think it would be much nicer if maybe you could wear, you know, something a little more modest. And just do it from a place of love.
Well,
like contextually, if you know that person and you know the story. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if there's a single mom that's, you know,
doing the best you can.
She has to decide between clothes and food. She's going to feed her kids rather than worry about what kind of clothes they're going to wear. And so what they're wearing is actually what they can afford to wear when they come to church.
So maybe the better question is, if you see somebody like that you don't know, to say, is there anything I can do to help you? Yeah,
or even the pastor who makes an announcement like that, instead of saying, you know, you have to wear this, say, you know, we're in God's house, here's appropriate. And if you can't, you know, just come and see me.
Come as you are.
Yeah, just come and see me. I'd love to just talk with you, you know. Maybe that opens the door to someone saying, well, maybe they can help us. Or maybe, because a lot of people are just, they don't want anybody to know what else is going on in their situation. True. They're embarrassed, you know. And so
they may need food. They may need shelter.
They may need and that's the reason why you invite them, because they may need something else.
Correct.
That's exactly what happened in our parish.
It's like teachers when they see a kid that clearly isn't bathing or whatever, like they have a responsibility to follow up and say, hey, do you need help? Like, is everything okay?
Exactly.
And that's what we should be doing as Catholics in our own parishes. You know what I mean? We have to do that. You know, modesty.
I think we should say, hey, here's why we're asking you to do this. But if there's an issue, come see me. I mean, it's a sometimes it's how you say things.
Correct.
You know,
come from a place of love.
It's how you say exactly. Come from a place of love and respect for God, not here's rule number 453.7 you know, of the dress code for the parish. You know, so
we don't want dress codes like that. I mean, there should be something, but like, you don't ever want to alienate anyone, because at one juncture in all of our lives, we probably weren't dressed appropriately for the wedding feast.
Yeah.
And more than one, in more than clothes. In more than clothes.
I mean, on the flip side too, you don't want to just ignore it and say like, I just come because the priest had to as well. They're here. Rather have them here than not here, which is true. But I just wear it. Who cares? You know. Well, I mean, there's something to be said for that. Like if you're going into an interview, like when I was in law enforcement, when I was a chief and I'm hiring officers, and you know, I looked at when a person came in and sat down in front of me, their appearance. To me, that's an impression.
It does.
If they come in with a T-shirt and jeans with piercings all over their face and tattoos all over their face, that leaves an impression on you, you know? I mean, to me, that says something about you and the respect that you have for me and for this position when you come in looking a certain way, you know? And so I think those lessons need to be taught to our young people. I mean, I meet young people all the time that they can't look you in the face. They don't know how to shake your hand firmly. They don't. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Yeah. And they don't know how to dress appropriately. And so, I mean, they just don't know. Yeah. You know. So I think there is a little bit of obligation, responsibility there to talk about modesty and appropriate dress and. You know, why, and again, the why behind, not just the what, just do what I say, but the why behind it.
Yeah, know? And there's almost two different questions when it comes to, like, what we wear to Mass, for example. Like, one is one of, like, stylistically, like, not doing ourselves up, not making it a priority, whatever. But you can do yourself up and still be very immodest, right? Like, if you're a woman wearing a dress or an outfit that is unnecessarily revealing, you know, that is immodest, even if it is nicer clothes. And that's a separate issue than not caring enough to do yourself up. Because the girl that maybe is immodest but did herself up, she did herself up. So, like, there it's the issue of being a distraction and like
attention seeking.
Attention seeking. And you know, that to me is not dissimilar than men who don't know how to shake hands or make eye contact. It's for the men, it's like they are emasculated. They don't know, they aren't taught how to be strong men in today's world. And for women, it's like the beauty and genius of their femininity is not taught to them. And so they think that they have to, like, take that, you know, that respect and take that attention instead of the fact that they just have this incredible dignity in and of themselves that is to be guarded and protected because it's a treasure. So we have a lot of gender wounds in our world today that are impacting the way we can interact with each other and the way we dress. Even as a man, as a man, as a husband, as a father, and as a man that goes to Mass, I feel like a different caliber of man when I've done myself up to go to Mass on Sunday and I'm there leading my family in that. Right. If whether it's because of a vacation or some weird situation, if I have to go to Mass in shorts and something less than my Sunday best, you feel that difference. It's like a tangible, we are corporeal beings. Like, you feel that. It's part of the experience, and you can't get around that. And it absolutely has to do with my sex. It absolutely has to do with my gender. I feel manly when I feel like I've dressed up and I'm making a priority of this, and I'm leading my family into Sunday worship. And the same can be said similarly, but differently for women. I'm sure I'm not one, so I can't speak to that. But
oh no, I mean, you when you make the effort to dress, to dress up, whatever that looks like. I mean, I don't think people have to think, oh, you got to wear nylons on a dress or whatever. I mean, you can just put on. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody should wear jeans to church, but there's nothing wrong with putting on a nice pair of jeans and a clean shirt if that's all you have and that's all you can do. You know what I mean? But there is a big difference when you do dress up. I can remember, like, it was when we go to Easter. You know what I mean? Like Easter and Christmas, everybody would get dressed up and they'd wear their Sunday best and, and go. And there's a feeling about it that is just, you feel good. But you don't feel good about yourself. You feel good because you're doing it for Christ. Like, you're doing it for God. You're doing it because you want, it's like showing love. It's a way to show respect and love for that, to where you're going. But, if you're driving by a church and it's 5 minutes to 5 and you don't have time to go home and get changed, God still wants you to come inside the church.
Yes. Yeah.
Go inside the church.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're wearing, if you've been out mowing the lawn and you stink, just sit in the back.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But just because you might not be looking good doesn't mean that God doesn't want you there. So you really need to go.
Women have to understand, guys are very sensory, physical, respond to a lot of external stimuli like that. So when you go to church and you dress like, again, not saying that this is your situation, you can't do anything. You know better, okay? But you just want to go because you want to look sexy at church. Again, because maybe you're not well formed or whatever. And a guy looks at you, let's just get real here. And he's not looking at you. He's not seeing what God sees.
Right.
He's thinking, damn, how many positions can I hit this from? That's what he's thinking. Let's be real.
Oh, it is real.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas just the other day I was in church. I was at I was speaking at the men's conference in San Francisco.
Right.
I went to the vigil mass, and I was there praying my office, before mass. And this woman walked in. She was wearing this white dress. She looked, I was like, wow. I mean, it was like she was beautiful. Long dress, everything covered up, everything. But it was her, she just didn't have no makeup on. She was just beautiful. But I was looking at her like, wow, God creates some amazingly beautiful. And I was looking at the depth of her femininity. That's how you want a guy to look at you.
Yeah.
Not
You
as
wanna
an
be a mystery.
object.
We're supposed to be
a mystery, right? And women are mysterious as hell. I'll tell you right now. I mean,
Well, that's a different issue.
That's a great. No, but you're absolutely right.
That's a great word for it. I love that.
It's a mystery. It's a beautiful mystery. And when I saw her, I was just like, wow.
She didn't have to do or say
she didn't have to do or say anything. Exactly.
And that is
and
like,
she was.
That's like looking at a beautiful sunset.
Yes,
that's like,
exactly.
And there's nothing impure about that. Now, it's not easy, and we're going to get into in future episodes. We're going to get into pornography and lust and stuff. You can't just like decide like, oh, I'm suddenly going to look at women like they're sunsets. It's not like that. But but what you're describing is that authentic of an experience of like just admiring what God has created. Because it'd be really silly and really puritanical, to just a woman walks in and you have to like pretend you don't see and like, now if you're like, if someone that struggles with alcohol addiction, for example, you got to, especially early in that process, you can't be around it. You got to protect yourself. So there's different stages to this, but at the same time, once enough healing has happened in your sexuality and in your capacity to appreciate a woman and the dignity of what she is when you're a man, like that's when you can look at that sunset, right? And you can just admire, like, man, God did a really damn good job.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you're not thinking anything except appreciating the depth of her beauty, right? Because you're looking through her and seeing what God sees. But that's what you, and that's where we're talking about the modest dress,
right?
And it was just the way she was dressed, and the way she dressed in modesty spoke a language.
Yeah.
Right.
Spoke a language.
Because she understood the relationship. She understood her relationship with her creator. She knew her role in that, because we have to decrease. That's what St. Paul says.
And I noticed too, when I was looking around, I wasn't the only guy looking at her too. I mean, they were just like, wow.
I mean, she was dressed inappropriately. It was because she was dressed reverently.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So here's another little question. What do you think spiritual modesty is? Like, to be modest in your spirituality.
Well, I think, St. Benedict talks about, I think spiritual modesty, humility are probably closely related. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. I think is authentic humility. So that means if you have a gift from God and you're using that gift, right? It's not arrogance. You're using the gift that God gave you, right? So I think of Eddie Van Halen. I used to have posters of him up in my room in college, man. To me, he was the man. I mean, he was doing things on the guitar, because a lot of people don't know he was a concert pianist.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, he's a classically trained concert pianist. And what he did was he took the techniques of piano and tried to transfer them onto guitar. And that's why he was able to do the amazing things he did. But he said you have to know the rules before you can break them, right? So when you see him play, it's not arrogance. It's not. That's what God created him to do. So when you see someone using their gift that God gave them, that now if they were to like, the greatest guitar player in the world, I'm a God, no, that's we get into the arrogance piece of it. That's when you get spiritual immodest. Yeah. When you recognizing your gift is one thing. Acting as if the gift came from you, that's where we get the spiritual immodesty from.
Right, and it's a struggle. I mean, for all people, because ultimately we all strive to be good at something. You know what I mean? And some people are gifted and good at multiple things, but you try to. But then you have to find the balance between, okay, I have to remain humble. You know what I mean? Because you have to always recognize where your gift came from. And yeah, you want to use your talents, but you never want to use your talents to inflate yourself. You want to use your talents to inflate the gift, the creator that gave them to you. Yeah. And that's a fine line.
You want to make sure that your gifts are pointing toward Jesus.
Right. Yeah.
That's
to your
it.
Savior.
Like they look at you. They see God. They see Christ. Exactly.
Christ in you. So that they know why you're doing what you're doing. You're not doing it because you want to be on a billboard. And the other thing, we got to be careful not to be jealous of someone's talent. You know, how come they have that and I? Remember, what's the difference between jealousy and envy? See, jealousy is wishing that you had someone that someone else has. Envy is you wish they didn't have it at all. And I think they both break a commandment.
That's bad because you're saying I wish that God did not give that gift to that person.
Wow.
But that's what they were created for. That's why envy is a lot more dangerous than jealousy is.
Yeah. So like me with Justin Timberlake, what I feel about Justin Timberlake singing and dancing would be jealousy. I'm happy he has it. I just wish I also had it.
There you go.
Yeah. Whereas it's not envy where you wish he didn't have it
Precisely.
at all.
I'm perfectly happy letting him have it too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious. All right. Well, this was fun. Does anybody have any closing thoughts on modesty? Is there anything specifically in the Bible about modesty? I just am curious. I don't know.
Well, St. Paul talks about women and their hair, that your hair should be covered in church and things like that because of,
Is that where the veiling came from?
Yes, because it's not a requirement in the church or anything like that. But the idea, the hair is kind of a vain glory point for a woman. It's like it could be, because the hair is beautiful and, and so by veiling it, it's like, okay, I'm recognizing the fact that I want people to recognize God's beauty. I don't bring attention to myself. So that's where it comes. It's beautiful. That's what nuns wear the veil.
I veil.
That's their wedding. Their wedding veil. So I think there's another beautiful symbolism
and men are
there.
allowed to wear hats in church.
No.
But women can.
Yeah, but see,
women can wear a hat or a veil.
But for the Jewish, they wear the.
They wear that. Okay.
The skull cap, or a bishop wears it.
The bishop.
The reason for that reminds you that there's something higher than you. That God is higher than you. That's why you wear it on top of your head.
See, I'm learning. See, that's what we do. We learn.
Because you can feel it, and that's a physical reminder that you're not, God is higher than you are. Yeah.
That's perfect. So, all right. So here we are. We're out, and we hope that y'all come back and join us on our next episode. And God bless you all.